We have legal news, we have signings, but most importantly, week 2 of the preseason is in the books. This is going to be the most important week in determining usage, depth charts, and the volume we can expect for these running backs this next season. Now, sadly, we did not get to see Ezekiel Elliott in the preseason, of course. This man just signed, right? But it was pretty much the best landing spot that you could possibly have had for Ezekiel Elliott going over the New England Patriots, where Bill O'Brien coming out saying he believes Zeke remains capable of being a 3-down back. I mean, hell, we know that he is a pretty damn good pass blocker, but most concerningly, what you have to be worried about with Ezekiel Elliott is going to be the red zone role and how that impacts Ramondre Stevenson's overall fantasy football upside. Now, realistically speaking, I cannot come out here and say, yeah, Zeke finds the dream landing spot. He's going to be a top 24 running back in fantasy. No, that's probably not the case, right? What you're looking at with Ezekiel Elliott, in my mind, is almost a similar running back to Elijah Mitchell, where we know with Elijah Mitchell and CMC, Mitchell's still going to see some work on a week-to-week perspective, but you're never going to be too excited to put him in your starting lineup. But if you really needed to, if you were desperate, you could start Elijah Mitchell and just send up a prayer that he scores a touchdown. That's going to be the similar situation that you have with Ezekiel Elliott, but you have the hidden upside case in that if Ramondre Stevenson or if Christian McCaffrey were to go down, then at that point, Elijah Mitchell or Ezekiel Elliott could be real big time difference making players in fantasy. So yeah, I have to include Ezekiel Elliott here. I mean, even if it is a little bit of old news at this point. Now, going over to our next guy, you are seeing Samir White slowly but surely move up fantasy football draft boards. Samir White used to be a running back that went undrafted to then he was a borderline 18th round pick in some drafts. And now in my underdog drafts, I'm seeing Samir White go round 13. I'm seeing Samir White go round 14. And this looks like it's probably not going to stop anytime soon, with a report coming out saying that Samir White is going to be acting as the starting running back as long as Josh Jacobs is away. Now, personally, I believe that Jacobs is going to realize he doesn't have a lot of leverage in this situation and he will be back before the season and Josh Jacobs will play. And then at that point, Samir White is just going to be regulated to backup duties. But based off his usage in the preseason, based off how good he's looked at times, there is no reason for Samir White to be on your waiver wire right now. Y'all know I talk a lot about not rostering that wide receiver like Zay Jones at the very end of your regular ESPN redraft roster, whereas instead you want to take a shot on a running back that if his situation breaks out in the way you would want, all of a sudden he could be a real-time contributor to your lineup. So I think Samir White's going to be the perfect guy until Josh Jacobs signs with the team to go ahead and draft in the last round or the second last round of your regular redraft format, because as soon as Josh Jacobs is back, well then, no harm, no foul. Cut Samir White. You're going to want to pick up someone off the waiver wire week 1 anyway. But if Josh Jacobs, for whatever reason, doesn't come back, then at that point, Samir White looks like he can be a borderline top 24 running back for you. Now, full transparency, I'm not the biggest Samir White fan in the world. I mean, this is a running back that, does have a BMI under 30, and he's not a great passing down back. He only had a 2.9% college target share at Georgia, but still, he weighs 214 pounds. He's pretty fast, and he's looked good in the preseason. Now, going over to our next guy, we are going to be looking at Javonte Williams officially playing in the preseason. Now, if you're going to be looking at the snap counts that you had with the starters, you got 13 snaps for Javonte with the starters in comparison to 11 for Samaje Perine. Now, honestly, I don't think that we can take a lot away from this in terms of the long-term usage for Javonte Williams. Clearly a running back that a lot of people thought was going to miss half the season shouldn't come out here and see every single snap in the preseason. That would just be reckless. But maybe it does give us a little bit of an indication of what we could expect for Javonte Williams in weeks 1, 2, and 3 as he does continue to get back his 100% strength from just destroying his knee last year. But yeah, so encouraging regardless to see the fact that Javonte Williams is actually on the field. Y'all know we got him in a ton of underdog drafts past pick 100 when the peak fear was at an all-time high. Hopefully, one of those drafts ends up winning us $3 million in Best Ball Mania this year. But of course, quick side note, if y'all want to draft with us on Underdog, y'all know I'm drafting every single night on this live stream, not missing a day until 2024. And if you sign up to Underdog Fantasy with the link in the description or in the comment section, Underdog's going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to 100. Plus, you'll get our 2023 fantasy football rankings, a free trial to flockfantasy.com where you can find our 2023 fantasy football draft guide. And on top of this, I work my butt off to get y'all a free Josh Allen special pick'em for week 1, more than less than half a passing yard. It's going to be exclusive only for people who use promo code FLOCK on Underdog. And I got y'all 3 exclusive pick'ems this year for Underdog. Super excited to give y'all the other 2 later in the season. Now, going over to our next guy, we are going to be looking at the Miami Dolphins running back room. Okay, so this has changed a lot in the past 2 weeks. 2 weeks ago, I was sitting here saying, under no circumstance does it make sense for you to draft Raheem Mostert or Jeff Wilson in your regular redraft league. Sure, Underdog drafts, you have to go so deep, take him. But in your regular redraft format, these guys are most likely going to get replaced. You still have to possibly be worried about Dalvin Cook, Ezekiel Elliott, Leonard Fournette, Kareem Hunt, Jonathan Taylor. And on top of this, Devon Achane's going to be the receiving down back anyway. So even if they don't bring in another RB, what's the real upside in a running back that doesn't catch passes as a part of a 3-man committee? Well, since we said that, Dalvin Cook goes to the Jets. Ezekiel Elliott is in New England. And now Devon Achane is carted off with a shoulder injury. Now, of course, we don't know how serious this is. We don't know if this is going to mean that Devon Achane misses 2 months, a month, a week. But nonetheless, it is going to be horrendous for a rookie that was trying to prove himself for playing time this next year. And it's going to cement the role that you have for both Raheem Mostert as well as Jeff Wilson this next season under the circumstance that they do not bring in Kareem Hunt. They do not bring in Leonard Fournette, and they do not trade for Jonathan Taylor. Now, that is still very much a possibility, and I still want to stand by the fact that I don't particularly think Mostert's a super talented player. Everybody remembers the one week that he had against the Packers in the playoffs where he went off and went nuclear. But outside of that 1 week, he has never had another game with 20 or more carries in his entire NFL career, and he's 32 years old. So I don't think these players have a ton of upside, but they went from someone that I was not interested in at all to now you kind of have to be. Now, going over to our next guy, Tank Bixby is clearly the running back 2 in Jacksonville. And I think you throw Tank Bixby in that same classification that we have guys like Elijah Mitchell, maybe even Ramondre Stevenson, right? Where no, he's never going to be the starter over Travis Etienne outside of an injury. But what he is going to give you is he is going to give you work on a week-to-week basis where if you were desperate, you could put Tank Bixby in your starting lineup. But at the same time, based off his prospect profile coming out of school, where we know, I mean, he was a high pedigree player. He was a little bit inefficient in college, but that was more so based off the offensive line that he had to run behind. But he does have the upside, if Travis Etienne were to go down, for him to all of a sudden be a true difference-making player in your fantasy football lineup. So he's that handcuff running back that gives you a little bit on a week-to-week basis where you could start him even if the starter is healthy. And yeah, just throw him in the same bucket with Elijah Mitchell, Ezekiel Elliott. Definitely love a player like this on Underdog, but still like him in your regular redraft league. Now, going over to the big guy we're looking at Joe Mixon winning this offseason. Now, we know earlier in the beginning of the offseason in those Underdog drafts, Joe Mixon was going round 7 because 1, people were worried about the Joe Mixon legal concerns. 2, people were worried about the Cincinnati Bengals possibly moving on from Joe Mixon due to his contract. But what's happened this offseason? 1, he restructures the contract so you don't have to worry about him not being a Cincinnati Bengal this next year. And now he was just found not guilty of aggravated menacing charges. And it looks like Mixon's clear to go, clear to get drafted this next season. Over the past 3 years, he's finished as the running back 8 from a points per game perspective. But what you should be most excited about with Mixon is obviously the elite level offense that he's playing in and the fact that he is a phenomenal receiving down back. He had a 15% team target share last year with Joe Burrow in the Cincinnati Bengals offense. He's much younger than other running backs like Derrick Henry, Austin Eckler, Aaron Jones. You don't really have to be as concerned with his age. He's in a great offense. He has no competition. You have to love Joe Mixon at this point. Now, going over to our next guy that I am in on this year. Last year, I whiffed. Last year, I said he was a fade, and I was wrong. I'm not whiffing on Damien Pierce this season. Damien Pierce, we've already talked about it, but has the quarterback upgrade going from Davis Mills to CJ Stroud. I don't want to talk about a lot how CJ Stroud's looked in the preseason. In reality, super small sample, right? I'm not trying to just scout guys in the preseason and say, oh, that one drive, he looked great, or that one drive, he looked bad. We're looking at usage. And when it comes to the usage, Damien Pierce saw every single snap with the starters with CJ Stroud. That was 14 out of 14 snaps. Damien Pierce played 100% of them. He was used as a 3-down back last year. A lot of people were worried about this new coaching staff wanting to go through and implement a running back by committee. If they were going to do so, I would have assumed that they went out and signed a big-time player. I'd assume they signed Miles Sanders, right? I would have assumed they went and signed David Montgomery. I would assume maybe, hell, they went through and they drafted a running back with some kind of pedigree like Zach Charbonnet round 2. Or maybe they went ahead and they drafted Tank Bixby round 3. No, the only thing they did is give an extremely small contract to Devin Singletary because they needed a backup running back in Houston. So yeah, I'm sorry for missing on Damien Pierce last season, but he's in a much better situation this year. He's cheaper this year. If you're getting Damien Pierce at the 6-7 turn in an underdog draft, you have to be taking him there. Now, going over to our next guy, Jalen Warren had some encouraging usage week 1 of the preseason. And now week 2, he's going out there and he is breaking off long rushing touchdowns. Now, you already see everybody on Twitter going, oh my gosh, Jalen Warren just had a run that was better than Najee Harris has ever had. But okay, let's be realistic here, ladies and gentlemen. Does this single rush for Jalen Warren all of a sudden make him the starting run? No, of course not. I'm not even going to finish the sentence. With Jalen Warren, it is very exciting to see the explosive big play potential. With Jalen Warren at the same time, this is a running back that was an undrafted free agent the year after the Pittsburgh Steelers spent a first-round selection on Najee Harris. A first-round pick. This is like what I was saying 2 years ago. This is like what I was saying last year with David Montgomery versus Khalil Herbert as well. I mean, we've done this so many times. I mean, y'all know last season, everybody was trashing on Jacobs, saying Samir White was the guy. And we just want to take a step back. We want to go, okay, well, we know teams, they care a lot about what they invest into players. We know that dictates how these guys are going to be used during the season. And I still want to remain with the statement. Najee Harris is the starting running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It doesn't matter what you personally think of their skill sets and their talents. Najee Harris will be seeing 60, 70+% of this backfield. And Najee Harris is the guy that you still want. With that being said, possibly you could throw Jalen Warren into that same bucket that we were looking at with Ezekiel Elliott, with Elijah Mitchell, with Tank Bixby, where if you really needed to, if you were desperate, you could go out there and you could put him in your starting lineup if you are loaded up with bye weeks and injuries. But in reality, the premium value that he holds is more so going to be the handcuff to if Najee Harris were to go down, then all of a sudden he could be a high-end RB2 in fantasy. Now, going over to our next guy, this is more so just an underdog call-out. In your regular redraft league, I think you should probably put him on a watch list, but I don't think you should bother drafting him. Keontae Ingram looks like he's the locked-in running back 2 for Arizona. And this is how you want to be using the preseason, right? With these ambiguous backfields, with these uncertain depth charts, especially behind the lead back, we really want to figure out how that usage would look if that starting running back were to go down. And what we saw with the starters this past week in Arizona is James Conner had 11 snaps. Keontae Ingram had 4. No other running back saw the field when the starters were out there for the Arizona Cardinals. That is going to be a big time deal if you are in those underdog drafts, possibly in round 18. If you were thinking, oh, okay, yeah, James Conner's been injured before. Let's set ourselves up with the ability to have the backup running back in Arizona, especially in those underdog tournaments where it's like a $5 buy-in, $200,000 first place prize, like for the puppy tournament, right? And where Keontae Ingram hasn't been drafted a lot, you could have him at low ownership. So I definitely think that Keontae all of a sudden is intriguing in those deep best ball leagues. But if you're in a shallow redraft format, don't bother. Just put him on your watch list. Now, I think that's all I have for you on this video. Again, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for checking it out. And if you have not done so already, go down there, drop a like, subscribe to the channel if you play fantasy football. And if you want to get in a draft with us, we are drafting every single night on this live stream on Underdog Fantasy. Their best ball drafts, so no time commitment at all during the year. So I drafted 700 teams, won $150,000 last season. And if you sign up to Underdog with promo code FLOCK, they're going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. Plus, you'll get our 2023 fantasy football rankings, a free trial to flockfantasy.com where you can find our 2023 fantasy football draft guide. Also, please make sure you are taking advantage of the free Josh Allen special pick'em that I got, y'all. That's going to be exclusive with promo code FLOCK. Doesn't matter if you signed up promo code FLOCK 2 years ago, last year, today, tomorrow, the next day. I got you hooked up. But thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. Really appreciate you and really hope I get to draft with you in a live stream later tonight.